Okay, so as I'm sure you're well aware, if you've ever been in a really stressful time in your life, you know that our stress and the way that we cope with stress impacts our immune system quite deeply. And we have all been experiencing, in various degrees, a lot of stress lately. And in particular in this time where the thing that's stressing us is also something that we require a very strong immune system against. I think it's incredibly important that we do get our stress under order. So I just want to kind of take a detour into what actually is stress and how it's been studied. So in my book, The Wellness Code, I've listed this, and it's actually something that I find really fascinating. So the symptoms of stress wasn't really thought of as being part of something that affects you and affects you mentally and physically until a doctor named Dr. Hans Selye studied stress, and he noted that people who were having these diseases but that we couldn't quite figure out what they were, they all had similar appearances of just feeling fatigued and all of these things. And what he eventually managed to realize, which was quite unique for his time, was that indeed stress made this be what was the kind of main contributing factor. So he came up with what he called GAS. So GAS, General Adaptation Syndrome. And this is how he describes stress and how it affects you. So through GAS, there are 3 stages to stress. Your stage 1 is likened to when we were cavemen, and you will have heard me if you've been listening to this podcast before and listened to my talks, you will have heard this explanation before, so please do forgive me, but I find it very good to explain things. But stage 1 is similar to as when we were cavemen and we spotted a saber-toothed tiger far away from us. Our senses were triggered and our body was told, okay, it's either time to fly away and run, or we stay and we fight. So that fight or flight syndrome is kind of starting to get kicked in. So what happens is your body, it triggers its muscles. It triggers the nervous system to be ready for action. And it kind of downplays all of the things that we don't need. So if you have fight or flight on one side, you have rest and digest on the other side. And that nervous system, called the parasympathetic nervous system, it rules your immune system. It rules rest. It rules digestion. So all of those things are kind of out the picture in according to your body when you are being stressed. So in stage 1, the body starts to shut down all of that and instead send blood flow to the muscles to allow you to respond to whatever threat is in your vicinity. And before, it usually was a physical threat rather than a mental threat. And that's fine. Stage 1, we need that. That's a good thing to have. It's just to come and go every now and then. Then what happens if that stress stays around? If, for example, we before were running away from things, then we kind of stay in this limbo of not fully being in full-on fight or flight, and we're not in full-on rest and digest. So your immune system starts to take a toll. Maybe you're starting to feel here that you're not really digesting things as well as you were before. But you're also starting to feel a little bit of fatigue because your muscles are constantly ready to get going, right? So stage 2, it happens a lot, and it's okay to be there, but we don't want to stay there too long. And what happens if you then get into stage 3, which is also called exhaustion, is that now your immune system is so low because it hasn't been given the chance to recuperate, that you are starting to feel the onset of illness. You are feeling fatigued, you're drained because your body has never been given the chance to rest. And nowadays, even though we don't have saber-toothed tigers around, we very often fall into the stage 2 and 3 phases because of social media, because of things like emails and work and always being reachable, and especially now with COVID around. So I like having that explained straight off the bat. I find it really interesting because it kind of shows us that actually stress is more than just something that we feel. It's something that's felt by the whole body, and why it's so important that we take care of ourselves and that we make sure that we make time for practices that de-stress us. Now, I think the second part to really understanding stress and really understanding what it is that we're going through is understanding what classifies as a stressor. So the acronym that I find so great is NUTS, because things tend to go a little bit nuts when we're stressed. And it stands for novelty, unpredictable, threat to ego, and sense of control. And we all experience those to minor degrees throughout our day, but I think that's kind of been hugely engrossed since pandemic have started. So novelty, something that is new, it's fresh, it's unknown to us. It can be something great, such as learning a new language, moving to a new place, because as you will know, stress can be good. It doesn't have to be something negative. But right now, it's novel because we've never experienced something like this before. We've never experienced a world where we have to wear masks, we have to keep the social distancing, and it's scary and it's always there. And as soon as you walk out the door, it's there. So you're constantly reminded of that. So if you go back to your stage 1, where you're constantly spotting that threat and that novel thing of seeing people with masks and so on, it's constantly there. Then we move on to unpredictable. When we can't really predict what's going to happen, we tend to feel a little bit stressed out. We like to know what's going to happen next. Unpredictable things can be such as someone getting sick, such as there being a traffic accident on your way to work. There are lots of things in our lives that are unpredictable. But right now, we have this unknown and thing that we cannot see, and we don't know who's going to be affected, because this doesn't work like that. So things are really unpredictable. Then we get threat to ego. Now, usually I like to liken this as into kind of our own self-awareness, as in when we feel threatened and questioned by people. Like questioned, oh, am I really good enough? Imposter syndrome tends to fall into this. Now I would like to think of it as more sort of the basic sense of the word, threat to ourselves. It's a threat to ourselves sometimes if we walk out the door. If we see people that we know and love, we can feel threatened because we don't know if this person that we meet has a disease that they're going to be passed on to us. Or even worse, in my personal opinion, do I have something that I'm going to pass on to this other person? And it's really, really scary. And then finally, sense of control. If we feel like we cannot control things, we tend to feel stressed out. And at the moment, I think that many of us do not feel like we are in control. So not to make you more stressed out, but to just kind of make you understand as to why this situation can feel so stressful when maybe you are at home, you have a loving and supportive family, you haven't lost your job. If you feel like, really, I don't have that much to be stressed out about it, but somehow I am, know that you are genetically wired to get stressed out in moments like this. So what's so important for all of us is just to have this sense of kindness, and there's no such thing as thinking, oh, I shouldn't feel like this because other people have it worse. Yes, it's true, but you also have to recognize the situation that you are in and give yourself credit and give yourself space. And in fact, if you look at all of these studies coming out around the world, there are increases in mental disease, as in such as people not feeling well. There's an increase in depression and anxiety, and it's even showing, there's been studies showing that a lot of people from COVID are being able to be classified with post-traumatic stress disorder. So it is a stressful time, and it's so important then that we come together and we learn how to kind of distance ourselves from the world and learn how to cope with this situation as best as we can. So my hope with this episode for you is that I give you those tools and that you learn to see ways that you can cope with it. And if some days you are not feeling well, that's fine. You're a human. And some days, hopefully, you will feel a little bit better because you are human and you are joyful and you are a happy, joyous person and human being. So with that, let's get into some tools and techniques to cope with stress during the pandemic. Okay, so we will work through some coping techniques. and some ways to get instant relief. But I think it's also worth noting that during this time, one of the reasons that you're probably feeling very stressed out is not just because of what's going on in the world, in the external world, but that is also reflected probably in your internal world. So what do I mean by that? Well, we are staying home. We are not traveling. We are not able to go out and party, which means that we are no longer able to use the same sort of distraction methods as we had before. So what's happening, I'm sure you're probably noticing, and I'm noticing this quite a bit, is in our relationships with our family, our friends, our loved ones, all those things that maybe you thought that you could kind of hide from or that you weren't ready to face, they're being highlighted and you cannot escape them because you're probably both, from both parties, whether that is a platonic friendship relationship or whether that is in your romantic relationships, neither of you are able to hide anymore because you're both in a state of being very triggered and you're going to come at it probably from your worst angles some days. So it's time to heal in that space, which is why right now, in a way, is an ideal time to do that shadow work, but also in a way is not because you have so much else going on. So I encourage you to notice if there are certain relationships that you are feeling more triggered and that you're feeling issues arising a lot more in. Allow yourself time to understand what is going on there. So allow yourself the time to kind of see things from a more objective perspective. Allow yourself to take the time to see from the other person's perspective. A lot of times the things that are annoying us in the person opposite to us is something that's reflected back about us. So if you're feeling like you cannot get close to the other person or there's a lack of intimacy, maybe it's a lack of intimacy because you're not giving that intimacy or whatever it might be. But also be aware of that, but also be aware of that this other person, whatever they are saying to you, can be a reflection of what they're feeling actually about themselves. So if you see what I mean here, there's a little bit of a circle going on. And when we feel triggered, take time to notice yourself and your feelings, especially. Know also that people will be triggered and reactive, meaning that when they come to you and you might feel their energy is very aggressive, it might not be about you. It might be about what happened earlier. It might be about what happened a month ago, about being in lockdown, all of these things. So just have a lot of compassion with each other and try to see whatever relationship it is, again, friendship or romantic, try to see it as you guys are both on the same side. You are on the same team. I would highly, highly recommend listening to my love episodes about how to heal and grow a relationship. That will give you some great advice. And take time to work on yourself, but with so much kindness and love, because you really need it at this time. One thing that I am doing personally is I'm doing the work, the self-healing work by the holistic psychologist. I forget her real name, but she's on Instagram. She has a future self journal, which I find fantastic because it's so great at allowing yourself to heal and to grow from whatever patterns that you are noticing with yourself that you are holding yourself back with. So if you notice that you're holding yourself back in career, in love, in your inner growth, this is a great, great tool. It's completely free, and I cannot recommend it enough that you start doing that. And so be aware about what's going on in the external world can be a reflection of what's going on in your internal world, meaning the way that you interact and communicate with people can be a reflection about how you feel about yourself. Can be a great, great time to do your self-improvement work, but do it with so much kindness, as I said earlier. So allow yourself time, allow yourself mistakes, allow yourself time to grow and to heal and to become something stronger and better than where you are at now. And just kind of enjoy the ride as much as you can. It will be very hard because it is coming from inside. So be kind, be loving, and enjoy. Okay, well now let's get into the really exciting parts, which are the tools to help you de-stress and to feel a little bit better in these moments. So I think right now there's a reason why we're turning to things that can distract us from the situation. Just before recording this episode, I saw an IG live between Jennifer Lopez and Matthew McConaughey, and they were both saying how this is kind of the resurrection era of rom-coms, because people just want 90 minutes of feel-good, fantastic movies where we know what the ending is gonna be, but we still want to see it anyways. So I do think there's value if you are someone who likes to watch Netflix, for example, or maybe you're more of a Disney Plus fan, whatever it is. Totally fine that you veg out and just enjoy and watch these series, because we need some sort of distraction. However, be mindful of using substances such as alcohol, drugs, or whatever else, maybe it's sex or whatever it could be. Be very, very mindful of using those as coping mechanisms, because they're going to get amplified. And in the end, for example, alcohol is a depressant, so it's not going to leave you any happier than when you came into it. So be very mindful of that. But there are other coping tools. So one trick that I have seen going around Instagram, which I think is fantastic, is this countdown of centering yourself. Because what's important in this moment is that we do not allow fear to make us rush ahead into the future, into the unknown, and allow this voice of fear to kind of create scenarios. So being present and mindful is super important, but it can be a lot harder than just focusing on your breath, which is the normal cue that any yoga teacher or wellness coach would give you. So this anxiety coping method is when you're feeling that you're getting stressed out, allow yourself time to just sit, and then start to notice around you and name 5 things that you can see. Then go into 4 things that you can touch. So maybe you can feel your clothes, maybe it's the chair that you're sitting in, whatever it might be. Notice those 4 things. And then 3 things you can hear. Maybe the hum of the AC or cars going by. Then moving into 2 things you can smell. And finally, 1 thing you can taste. So allowing yourself to draw into your senses and just taking this time to slow everything down and slow your thinking down can really stop that anxiety from building up too much. If you are someone who then needs more, I would then go into box breathing. Box breathing means that you, for example, inhale for a count of 4, you hold your breath for a count of 4, you exhale for a count of 4, and again you hold your breath for a count of 4, so that you take your time and you just really slow everything down, and you just focus on that breath, focusing on the air quality coming in, coming out, the change of the temperature, and really allowing yourself to slow down. And those are kind of the tools to use in the moment. Now, throughout this period, it's important that you have practices in place to slow you down. I think a routine is really important in this time when it's easy to not have a routine. So taking care of your body is going to be of utmost importance. And it's okay, you don't need to work out like crazy. We all had ideas that we were going to be super fit after the first lockdown. It's totally fine if you are not doing that. But have some sort of movement practice in place. Yoga, stretching, all of those things would be great. And make sure that you are managing your rest and your exercise time well. So focus on your sleep a lot. Focus on your nutrition. Make sure you're eating well. But do allow yourself those goodness moments as well. So allow yourself some sweets, allow yourself some candy if that is what you like. But really, really focus on taking care of yourself in the way that is unique for yourself. So those were a few of my personal coping methods, but I want to finish off this episode with something slightly different. I want us to take some time to kind of center and ground us. So I'm going to use a combination of the things that we just did, and we are going to de-stress together. So I want you to get somewhere where you feel comfortable, get into a space that is calm. If you're listening to this whilst you're driving, which most people tend to do, be careful, don't go into it too much. but save it for when you get home and that you can relax. So get into a comfortable position, and let's just take a nice big breath in through our nose. So inhale. Let your shoulders rise up towards your ears as you do, and with the exhale, let those shoulders sink down. Then allow yourself to become aware of the space around you. So let's begin by naming in our mind 5 things that we can see. So from where I'm seated, I can see my bed. I can see a flower. I can see some pictures of underwater scenes. I can see a blanket. And I can see my phone. And I can see the camera that I am looking into. Then let's go into 4 things that you can touch. Personally, I can touch my jeans. I feel the floor beneath my feet. I feel the chair that I am seated on. And I feel my hair against my shoulders. 3 things you can hear now next. You can hear the sound of my voice. I can feel, I can hear the AC humming. And I can also hear in the distance the sound of the TV on that my family is watching. 2 things you can smell. This might be a little bit harder for me, as my nose is blocked from allergies. So I want you to take time and just notice the smells in your room, wherever you are. Maybe you can smell a perfume, smell the ocean air. Maybe you can smell a flower, whatever it might be. Name 2 things. Finally, 1 thing you can taste. I can still taste a little bit of the sweetness of candy that I had just before recording this. Let's take time to notice the things that you can taste. Now, hopefully you're feeling a little bit more centered, more relaxed. So at this time, I would like to invite you to join me for a round of box breathing. So getting comfortable. We're going to inhale through our nose for a count of 4. So let's get ready. So we inhale for 1, 2, 3, 4. At the top, hold your breath for 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale for 1, 2, 3, 4. And then hold your breath again for 4, 3, 2, 1. And now that you're feeling really relaxed, I want you to find an affirmation that feels suitable for you. Maybe I am powerful. I am safe. I am grounded. Whatever comes into your mind. Feel it, repeat it 3 times through. And then close your eyes. Breathe in. Exhale out. And then blink your eyes open and come back into the room. So that was this episode. I'm feeling very calm now. Of coping with stress and coping with this unpredictable world that we are in. And I hope you found it useful. I hope you are figuring out ways that are going to work for you, that will help you in this crazy world. And I hope that you are in a place where you feel safe. I hope that you feel encouraged. I feel that you feel empowered and that you are ready to keep going. be kind, be loving to yourself, be kind and loving to those around you, and just have that little bit more of compassion to yourself and others. I would love to hear from you if you enjoyed this episode. What did you like? What would you like to see more of? And yeah, just keep in touch. I am so relaxed, I have to say, from that mini meditation, and I really hope you are too. I will link everything that I have mentioned in this episode will be in the episode notes. And I hope to connect with you soon. And I wish you a wonderful, wonderful day. And see you soon. Bye.